Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello Designs. Today I'll be presenting a video tutorial on making a greeting card using 6 small panels to create a unique and fun look to the card. Here's the card that we're going to be making today. This card is created by using 6 small cards that we attach to a white piece of cardstock and then an accent frame behind it before we add it to the actual card base. So here are the supplies that we will be making our card with today. We will be using the Lavinia Multifarious Smooth and Supreme A6. And what I've done here is I have cut out 3 each of a 2.5 by 2 inch piece of the multifarious, and 3 pieces that are cut to 2 by 1.5 inches. Then we will be using a white base that we will be mounting our little pieces of panels onto. This piece has been cut to 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. Then we are going to mount that onto a purple frame just to give it a little bit of contrast. This piece of cardstock is cut to 4 3/4 inches by 6 3/4 inches. And then finally we will have our card base that we will attach the final piece of the frame that has all the little panels on it. This piece has been cut to 10 inches by 7 inches, and then it's been folded in half to make our card base. The inks that we will be using today will consist of for our black inks, we will be using the VersaFine Clair Nocturne. And then for making our base colors, we're going to use the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide colors. This is Shaded Lilac and Tumbled Glass. We will also be using several different stamps today. I'm crossing over several different brands. We will be using Lavinia for our bees. This one is the LAV 132 and it's the bee miniature. For our sentiment, we're going to be using the Cardio Wise Words collection, and we'll be using the Nature Does Not Hurry, Yet Everything Is Accomplished. And then we will be using the All and Create Poppies collection, and we've got a variety of poppies that we will be using from that set. Also today I will be using my Tim Holtz stamping platform. I have set it up with a sticky grid that helps me to not have to use magnets. A good alternative that you can purchase on the Bello Designs website is the Misty stamping platform. We will also be using our blending brushes. I have one for each of the colors that I'm going to be using. When we begin to put our cardstock together, I'll be using the Ultra Bond adhesive. This is a new adhesive that is now being sold on delbellosdesigns.com, and I just bought this. I've used it on this project and really like it. It's got the very fine tip, so you can I'll get out just a very tiny little amount if you need it. Then we will be using just a black marker. Let me get this set over here out of the way, to create this little bit of the black edging. I like that edging because I wanted it to really pop on the white background. Alright, so let's get started making our card. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is to go ahead and start by making our backgrounds on each of our 6 different little cards here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move some of this out of the way, and just so you can see how this is laid out, that's how I'm going to actually go ahead and lay out my cards right now, my little pieces that we're going to be working on. because I want to make sure that I get my pattern to be like it looks like it's almost one consistent piece. So that's how my cards are going to be laid out. So here you see that I liked the way I did the purple kind of shading on the edges and then had the blue in the center. So we're going to do something very similar to that on our cards here that we're going to work on. So we will have our blending brushes and our backgrounds. I'm also going to go ahead and have my piece of paper towel and water here available to clean up my workspace so that I don't get everything, ink all over everything. Okay, so to start out with, I'm going to go ahead and do this panel first. And as you can kind of see in this one, I almost did it just half and half with the purple and the blue. So we will go ahead and start out. We'll just go ahead and do our blue first. And with that, I am just going to go in circles to apply the blue. Try to get as smooth of a background as I possibly can there. Then I'm going to go to my purple, the shaded lilac, and I'm going to do the other half. Now you don't have to do the same pattern that I have done. You can choose to do your backgrounds any way that you would like to. This was just the way that I decided that I wanted to do mine. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and just touch this piece up just a little bit here at the top edges. Get a little bit more of the tumbled glass. And sometimes I do find that especially with the oxides, that it gets on your hands and that you're easily able to get spots there that your fingers pick it up. So a lot of times I'll just take a little piece of scrap paper or cardstock and use that to place my hand so that I don't smear or make fingerprints on my background. So there is the first one. The second one that we had more blues, but just a slight little bit in the purple. So we will take this piece and doing the same process, we'll take our tumbled glass, and we're going to do this one pretty much almost the entire card. Then we will take our shaded lilac and just put it across the corner. Blend that in just a little bit so the two colors touch and blend. And so this will now be the two bottom panels. I'm going to go ahead and squirt a little bit here to clean up the desk, the work surface here. So we don't get that all over everything. And then we will lay out those. And so our next panels are going to be like this. So what we're going to want to do then is continue that pattern. So that means that this portion is going to be in the tumbled glass and this portion will be in the shaded lilac. And again, I will just take, I'm going to kind of look and see here where it goes, probably right across here. So it will have more actually of the shaded lilac than of the tumbled glass in this particular panel. And then I will take the tumbled glass again just to blend the two colors together. I'll flip that over so we can get a little bit better angle and grip on it. Okay, so now we've got 3 of our panels done, and you can kind of see then how I'm working on doing these backgrounds. Now, since it'll take up a lot of time for me to go ahead and finish the last 3 panels out on videotape, I'm going to go ahead and stop it and then finish these last 3 cards, and then we will come back and go from there. Okay, so I have now finished doing all of my panels. You can see how I kind of tried to keep it where the blues and the purples looked like they were just continuing on to each other. So now we are ready to go ahead and begin doing our stamping. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get my stamping platform, and we will open it up, and what we're going to do is go ahead and place the panels as if they are actually going to be on how they're going to be on the card. So I'm just going to lay the first one down, and on the card it's going to have approximately 1/8 of an inch in between, and it might be slightly a little bit more. So that's how I'm going to go ahead and lay it out, as if it's going to be in the exact same locations that it's going to be when I actually complete the card. Using the sticky grid paper is also a great idea with this particular project, because then you can line them up with the lines that are on the grid, so you can get a little bit more accuracy, a little bit more of the accuracy that you're going to want to get it where it's almost exactly like on your card when you finish it. So we've got them now all lined up and ready for our stamps. I'm going to go ahead and move my ink pads out of the way since I don't need them anymore. That way we won't be knocking them off the table. Alright, so there it is laid out the way that we are going to do it on the card. I'm going to start out with the sentiment, I think. So I'm going to take my saying, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." I'm going to put it on this panel here. So I'm going to line that up. I'm going to go ahead and pull this forward so I can make sure I'm getting it even. Looks like that's where I want it to be. Oh, I just realized I think I was laying that out backwards. That doesn't work, does it? Alright, trying again. There we go. Get that centered where I'd like it. Close up my door on it. And now I'm going to take my VersaFine Clair Nocturne and I'm going to ink up my stamp. And I got a little bit here. Don't want to smear that, so I'm going to clean it up. And then we will close the door. Gently rub, a slight pressure on it, get a nice clean image. Alright, looks good. So I'm going to also go ahead and clean up my stamps as I go. That helps to keep them getting too stained up. I keep a little piece of baby wipe handy, so I can just really quickly just kind of wipe those up. Clean up the stamp. And now we can set that one aside. So let's go ahead now and let's see. I think we want to do our stem that goes across two cards. Here's kind of the example again. So this one I've got going across two panels. So that will be this one. And we will lay that out. Position it where we want it. Now it does come a little bit down on my sticky grid, and I really don't want to get ink all over that, so I'm just going to put a little piece of scrap paper down here against the edge so that it'll keep my sticky grid paper a little bit cleaner. Alright, so we've got that onto the lid. We'll do the same process. Ink that up. And now this is going to stamp across my two pieces of panels. And light pressure, a little bit of rubbing. Get a nice clean image. And we got a good clean sharp image with that one. Again, I'm going to clean off my stamp immediately. I have quite a few stamps that I did not do that, and they're pretty stained up. Alright, so our next stamp that we're going to do is it's a little poppy that's kind of over here down on the bottom. So we're going to take that, and what I want is that to kind of go off the edge just a little bit. And so once again, I'm going to keep my paper here to keep the sticky grid, but I also need to block off to make sure that it doesn't go over onto my panel on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of scrap paper there as well. Alright, so now we will close the door up. Ink up our stamp. And when we close the door, it's going to go over onto our scrap pieces so that we don't get the image where we don't want it to be. didn't quite. Let me press down a little bit further on this, harder on this side. See, we may need to get a little more ink, we'll see. I may put just a tiny touch more on there, just to make sure, get a good sharp image. That's a great thing about the stamp platforms. I said, if you aren't quite happy with it, you can always restamp it. Okay. Now that one is done, and I will once again clean off my stamp quickly. Set that one aside. Alright, so now let's go ahead and do the one in the bottom panel. And I want to go ahead and use this little stamp here. Get that positioned where we want it. Ink up the stamp and close our lid again. All right, and that looks really nice. Clean off my stamp. Getting a little bit of ink on my hands too. Wipe those off just a little bit so we don't get a mark where we don't want it. And I just realized that looking at my example piece, I just got a few on it because I touched it. So that's why it's really good to have that baby wipe on hand so that you can touch up or your hands and not smear your ink everywhere. Alright, so let's go ahead and do our little bees. Where did I put my little bee? Uh-oh, I dropped him now somewhere. Alright, well, we'll come back to him. Let's do the smaller poppy. And that one's going to come down like this. So that means that we do need to cover up this portion of the card, because we don't want the stem to go down on the other card, the other panel. Oh, and you see I just got ink on that one, but hopefully we can work around that. So that's a good reason to keep this on hand, and often to clean your hands up. So I hate that happened, but that's the way it goes when you do this kind of stamping. I know I a lot of times just don't even think about the fact that my hands are getting dirty, and then it might get on my project. All right. And we press that down. And take that out. Okay, I turned off the camera so that I could find my bee, and I did find him. And while it was off, I went ahead and just took, I have a little eraser that has a sand element to one side of it that helps to get ink out. It erases the ink. It's actually an ink eraser. So I did do that while I was away and kind of touched it up a little bit. So the black ink that I smeared on there is now off. But as you can see, my hands are a mess. So I'm going to quickly clean them off so that we don't have any more little accidents with that. And that's what's great about having a baby wipe handy. so that you can do that and not mess up your projects. Okay, so our final little stamping that we're going to do will be our bees. So I will place the first little bee just somewhere around in there. Also go ahead and wipe this off real quick to make sure that no ink stuck on it. Ink up little bee very quickly. And wipe this off. And a little slight pressure. Get our first little bee situated. And now we will work on the second one, and let's go ahead and have him coming down about like that. And tap to ink him up, wipe up the smear that I get from the big ink pad on the little bitty guy. It's kind of hard to not get it on the lid. And then we close it up and do our second little bee. And now we're ready for the last little guy. And let's see, let's get him maybe up in this corner, coming down. Whoops. About in there. Get him inked up. And now our final little stamp. Alright, and now we have got all of our panels stamped up. So I'm going to go ahead and close up my black so that we don't get it, and make sure once again that my hands are clean because we're getting ready to put our panels together. So we don't want to get any ink smeared around. So we're now ready to remove these panels from our stamp pad. And we won't be needing our platform anymore, so we will set it aside. And then we will get out our white piece of cardstock that we are going to mount our panels on. At this point, go ahead and lay your panels out. I do see just a little thumbprint smear on this. I'm just going to touch that up just a little bit with the blending brush. There we go. So lay your panels where you want them. You're going to have somewhere around maybe a little bit slightly more than 1/8 of an inch in between each of your panels. Okay, so we've got them lined up, and then we're going to go ahead and I'll tell you what, we've got them lined up, but what I really want to do, I had talked to you about earlier how I like to put the black edge around it so that it really stands out. So I've just got a little art marker here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each piece And just take the edge of the wide tip part of my marker. You can use whatever works best for you. I'm just going to take it, slight angle, and drag it across each side to give that little definition that we want. I'm going to do that on all 6 little panels. Try to keep your pen at the same level as much as possible so that your lines aren't too wobbly. It's actually easier than you think. It's just drag it along the edge there. All right. And one more panel. You don't have to do the edging if you don't want to. I just like the contrast that I get when I do that. I think it makes it look nice and crisp. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and adhere our panels onto the base. So I have got, whoops, I've got glue going. All right, so I've got my little fine tip glue, the Ultra Bond adhesive, and I am just going to go around the outside edge, but I'm not going to go real close to it. And the reason I don't go all the way to the edge is you're obviously going to have a little bit of spreading. And you also want to have just a little bit of wiggle room so that when you lay it down, and you may need to scooch it over just a tiny little bit, that you don't get glue marks outside of your, onto your base card. Positioning your first one is probably your most critical one, because that's how you're going to line up the rest of your panels. Now, the nice thing about this bond is that it does allow you just a couple of minutes of wiggle room, so that if you need to adjust it as you're laying it down, then you can do that. Whereas if you use like a running tape or something like that, then you're going to not have, once you stick it down, it's down. So this does give you just a slight little bit of wiggle room. All right. There's the second panel. And then let me get these and kind of make sure I've got them right where I want them so that I can line everything up. I'll go for this piece. So you can kind of see there where I'm wiggling it slightly so I can get it exactly where I want it to be. And line this one up. And now for our last two panels. Pull this a little closer to me so that I can see where I want to place that. And see, I'm almost running out of time to make the adjustments. So whenever you put it on there, you do need to make your adjustments pretty quickly, because this is a permanent adhesive bond. It dries clear, so if you do happen to get a little bit outside, you don't have to worry too much about it showing, because it does dry clear. Alright, so now we have got our 6 panels mounted onto our white base. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is mount this onto the frame. So you can see that I cut it 1/4 of an inch larger, so that we're going to have about 1/8 of an inch frame around the outside edge. And we're just going to do the same thing. Take a little squirt of glue, go around all 4 edges, leaving just a little bit of wiggle room there so the glue doesn't squish out past the edge. Turn this over and place it down. Get that all lined up and press. Oops, put a tiny little spot right there, since that corner seems a little on the loose side. See, I did get a little bit much, but that's going to dry clear, so that's going to be not a problem. All right, and final step. Adhering it to the card base. That looks like I got a little ink on that one. I'm going to flip that over. I'm not going to be able to. I'll have to erase it. All right, that's okay. And get that centered where we want it. And press down. You can see I got just a little bit of black ink on this edge as well. So I might be able to get it to erase up just a little bit. Not quite as well. So I guess that's a good lesson on making sure that we watch where we touch things and lay things down. But as you can see, we now have our card done. So this is a really fun project to do. You can use your imagination on the way you can do all your different stamps, but this just kind of has a very fun, unique look to it with the 6 different panels. I hope you enjoy trying this panel technique yourself. You can adapt it to any size card that you like just by changing the panel dimensions, changing your each piece dimensions, and you can even do different angles and designs. So just come up with something creative on your own. So thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today, and be sure to remember to check out the delbellosdesigns.com website for more tutorials by the design team members. Just check for the design team page. I hope you have a great day.